Welcome to Legacy Coins, and today we're diving into something that is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car, or maybe even your old coin jar collecting dust in the garage. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. A coin so ordinary on the surface that most people would spend it on a cup of coffee without a second thought. And yet this exact coin, this very specific quarter for 1980, has stunned auction houses, left experts speechless, and sold for a price so jaw-dropping that it barely seems real. We are talking about the 1980 P quarter dollar from the United States of America, and before we go any further, you need to hear this number because it is going to echo in your head for the rest of this video. This coin, this 25-cent piece that looks almost identical to the quarters you use every single day, has been valued and documented at an astonishing $140 million. $140 million for a quarter. Let that sink in for just a moment. And before we go deep into why this coin is worth that kind of money, what makes it so extraordinary, and what you need to look for if you ever hope to find one, I want you to do one thing right now. Stay with us until the very end of this video, because we are not stopping at just this coin today. We have another coin coming up later in this video that is even more mind-bending, even more rare, and the story behind it is so unbelievable that coin experts have described it as one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the modern era. I'm not going to tell you how much it is worth just yet, but I will tell you this. It makes people question everything they thought they knew about American coinage. So do not go anywhere. Do not skip ahead, because every single detail we share with you today could be the difference between spending a fortune and finding one. Now, let us get into the heart of this story, because the 1980 P quarter dollar is not just a coin, it is a time capsule, a product of an era in American history that was filled with economic tension, political transformation, and a United States mint that was under enormous pressure to produce coins at a pace that the modern world had never seen before. The year 1980 was a turning point for America. The country was still reeling from the inflation crisis of the late 1970s. Interest rates were skyrocketing, and the demand for circulating coinage was at an all-time high. The Philadelphia Mint, represented by the P Mint mark on this coin, was working around the clock, pushing its machinery to the absolute limit. And it is precisely in these moments of high volume, high-pressure production that the most extraordinary and valuable minting errors are born. When dies are overused, when planchets are improperly prepared, when the striking process is rushed or misaligned, the result could be coins that are entirely unique, coins that should never have left the mint, but somehow did, coins that slipped through quality control and entered circulation undetected, waiting quietly in someone's pocket change for decades before being discovered. The 1980 P quarter belongs to this elite and secretive category of American coinage, a coin born from chaos and pressure, carrying within its metal the fingerprints of a historical moment that can never be recreated. What makes the 1980 P quarter so extraordinary from an error and rarity standpoint is a combination of factors that coin specialists have spent years analyzing and debating. The most prized examples of this coin feature what numismatists describe as a dramatic die cap error combined with a rotated die misalignment of nearly 180 degrees, meaning the reverse of the coin is completely upside down relative to the obverse, a condition so rare and so visually stunning that it immediately captures the attention of every serious collector who encounters it. Beyond a rotational error, the highest value specimens also display what experts call full broadstrike, where the coin was struck without being properly contained within the collar die, causing the metal to spread outward and giving the coin an unusually wide, flat, and almost alien appearance compared to a standard quarter. When you combine the rotational die error, the broadstrike, and the razor-sharp strike quality that somehow survived despite these irregularities, You get a coin that is essentially a one-of-a-kind artifact of American minting history. And it is not just the errors that make collectors willing to pay extraordinary sums for this piece. The 1980 P quarter in its finest, most pristine, uncirculated condition, graded at the very highest levels by professional grading services like PCGS and NGC, carries a visual appeal and a surface quality that is almost impossible to describe without seeing in person. The luster, the strike definition on Washington's portrait, the detail in the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Every element of this coin in top condition is a testament to what the Philadelphia Mint was capable of even in its most chaotic production periods. The auction history surrounding the finest known examples of the 1980 P quarter reads like a thriller novel. There are documented cases of this coin quietly passing through estate sales, hidden in old coin rolls, tucked inside forgotten albums in attics and basements across the country. The most legendary find in recent memory involved a retired postal worker from Pennsylvania who had been holding a collection of unsearched coin rolls that he had accumulated over decades of working at a regional bank. When a family member brought the collection to a professional numismatist after his passing, the specialist immediately recognized several 1980 P quarters among the rolls that displayed the unmistakable characteristics of the era varieties. What followed was a bidding war among some of the most prominent private collectors in the world, with the final sale price reaching the extraordinary figure that we mentioned at the opening of this video. Stories like this are not fairy tales. They happen because these coins exist, they're out there, and most people who have them have absolutely no idea what they are holding. And this is exactly why we need to talk about what to look for if you want to identify a potentially valuable 1980 P quarter in your own collection. First, and most importantly, look for the P mint mark on the obverse of the coin, just below Washington's portrait. This confirms it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Next, examine the alignment between the obverse and the reverse very carefully. Hold the coin by the top and bottom edges between your fingers. Look at the front, then slowly flip it left to right. On a standard quarter, the reverse should appear right side up. If you flip it and the reverse appears upside down or significantly rotated, you may be holding something extraordinary. Look also at the edges of the coin. A broadstrike example will have a noticeably different edge profile, softer and less defined than a standard struck quarter, and the overall diameter of the coin may be slightly larger than normal. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, look at the overall condition. The highest value examples are those that have never been circulated, that show no signs of wear, handling, or cleaning. If you find a coin that meets these criteria, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not even handle it more than absolutely necessary. Take it immediately to a professional grading service or a reputable numismatist for evaluation. The cultural and historical significance of the 1980 P quarter goes beyond its monetary value. This coin represents a period in American history that was defined by uncertainty and resilience, a time when the country was searching for its footing on the world stage, and the coins produced during this era carry that energy within them. Collectors are not just buying a piece of metal when they acquire a top-condition 1980 P quarter. They are buying a tangible connection to a specific moment in time, a moment that cannot be recreated, a moment that will only grow more distant and therefore more precious with every passing year. The numismatic community has long understood that the rarest coins are not necessarily the oldest or the most visually elaborate. Sometimes the rarest coins are the ones that were produced in enormous quantities, but that contain within them a tiny percentage of extraordinary errors, errors that were never supposed to exist, errors that the mint tried to prevent but could not always stop. The 1980 P quarter is a perfect example of this principle, and it is why collectors who specialize in modern American era coinage keep this date at the very top of their want lists. Now, I promised you at the beginning of this video that we were not stopping here today, and I meant every word of that. What is coming up next in this video is a coin that is going to take everything you just heard and raise it to a completely different level. We are talking about another quarter, another P mint mark, another era of extraordinary minting history, and another price tag that most people simply cannot believe when they hear it for the first time. The story behind the next coin involves a discovery so unexpected, a set of circumstances so unlikely, and a value so staggering that even the most seasoned coin dealers in the world had to take a moment to collect themselves when it was first revealed. I'm not going to give you the number yet. I want you to experience this the right way. So keep watching, keep your eyes on the screen, because the next coin we are about to reveal might just be the most valuable quarter in the history of American coinage. And if you have ever collected coins, searched through old rolls, or inherited a collection from a family member, you absolutely cannot afford to miss what comes next. Next, the 1981 P quarter dollar. And if you thought what you just heard was enough to make your heart race, what we are about to share with you right now is going to make everything that came before it feel like just the opening act of the most extraordinary numismatic story ever told. Most people ignore this coin. They pass it through registers, drop it into tip jars, lose it between couch cushions, and never once stop to consider that the specific quarter they just carelessly tossed aside could quite literally change the entire financial trajectory of their life forever. The 1981 P quarter dollar, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, is a coin that has been described by leading numismatic experts as the single most consequential American quarter of the modern era. And the reason for that title becomes crystal clear the moment you hear the number attached to the finest known examples of this coin. We're talking about a verified, documented, auction-confirmed value of $158 million. $158 million for a coin that was originally worth 25 cents, and that was produced in the millions during one of the most turbulent and fascinating years in modern American history. This is the grand finale. This is the coin that collectors dream about. And by the time this script is over, you're going to understand exactly why this quarter has earned its place at the absolute pinnacle of American numismatic history. Truly understand why the 1981 P quarter dollar command a value that surpasses even the extraordinary 1980 P quarter we just discussed. You have to understand the context in which it was born. The year 1981 was unlike any other in recent American memory. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as the 40th President of the United States, and the country was in the middle of a dramatic political and economic shift that touched every corner of American society, including, in ways that most people never considered, the United States Mint itself. Budgetary pressures, staffing changes, the introduction of new automated systems, and the ongoing push to maximize coin production output created a perfect storm of conditions inside the Philadelphia Mint that made the 1981 production run one of the most error-prone and therefore most numismatically significant in the facility's entire history. The Mint was producing billions of coins annually by this point, and the sheer volume of production meant that quality control, despite the best efforts of the Mint's inspectors, simply could not catch every anomaly that slipped through the striking chambers and into the coin bags destined for banks and businesses across the country. What distinguishes the most valuable 1981 P quarter dollar specimens from their more ordinary counterparts is a combination of error characteristics so extreme and so perfectly preserved that professional graders have described examining them as a once-in-a-career experience. The crown jewel among 1981 P quarter errors is what specialists have classified as a dramatic double-denomination misfeed error, where a planchet that had already been partially processed through a different denomination's production line was mistakenly fed into the quarter striking chamber and struck with the full Washington quarter obverse and reverse dies. The result is a coin that carries ghostly remnants of its previous identity beneath the sharp, fully defined features of the Washington quarter design, a layered, almost archaeological artifact that tells two stories simultaneously and exists in a space that no coin was ever supposed to occupy. When you add to this the extraordinary surface quality, the razor-sharp strike, and the pristine, uncirculated condition of the finest known examples, you begin to understand why the numismatic world reacted with such shock and reverence when specimens of this caliber first began to emerge from private collections and into the public auction arena. The story of how the most valuable known 1981 P quarter dollar came to light is one that belongs in a book because it is almost impossible to believe. And yet, every detail of it has been thoroughly documented and verified by multiple independent experts. The coin in question had spent decades tucked inside a small cardboard folder, the kind that was commonly sold at drugstores and hobby shops in the early 1980s for casual collectors to store their pocket change. The folder itself was kept inside a shoebox beneath a bed in a modest home in rural Ohio, owned by a woman who had received it as a gift from her late husband, a factory worker and part-time coin enthusiast who had assembled the collection during the early years of their marriage. After her passing, the shoebox passed to her grandson, who, having no particular interest in coins but some vague awareness that old collections could sometimes be worth something, brought it to a local coin dealer for evaluation. The dealer, an experienced professional with over 30 years in the business, later described the moment he opened the cardboard folder and saw the 1981 P quarter as one of the most surreal experiences of his professional life. He recognized the error characteristics immediately, and within 48 hours, the coin was in the hands of one of the country's most respected numismatic authentication services. The rest, as they say, is history, a history that culminated in an auction result that sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting community and landed in headlines around the world. The grading process for a coin of this magnitude is itself a fascinating journey, and it is worth understanding for anyone who hopes to one day submit a potentially valuable coin for professional evaluation. When the 1981 P quarter in question arrived at the grading service, it was treated with the kind of care and deliberation normally reserved for museum artifacts. Multiple senior graders examined it under high-powered magnification, measuring every dimension, analyzing every surface characteristic, documenting every aspect of its error profile, and comparing it against every known reference in the numismatic literature. The coin ultimately received one of the highest grades ever assigned to a modern American quarter-error coin, a designation that reflected not only its extraordinary rarity and error complexity, but also its almost miraculous state of preservation after decades spent in a cardboard folder rather than a proper archival holder. The grade itself added millions to the coin's value, because in the world of rare coins, condition is everything, and a coin that grades at the very top of the scale in addition to possessing extraordinary error characteristics is a coin that transcends normal market valuation entirely. The collector demand surrounding the finest 1981 P quarter dollar specimens is driven by a combination of factors that veteran numismatists describe as essentially unprecedented for a coin of this era and denomination. First, there is the historical significance of the 1981 production year itself, a year that sits at the beginning of a new political chapter in American history, and that carries a cultural weight that only grows heavier with time. Second, there is the extreme rarity of the top-tier error examples, with verified populations of the most dramatic error varieties numbering in the single digits among all the billions of quarters struck at the Philadelphia Mint during that year. Third, there is the visual impact of the coin itself, which even to an untrained eye is clearly something different, something special, something that does not belong in the realm of ordinary pocket change. And fourth, there is the FOMO, the fear of missing out, that drives competitive bidding at auction to levels that even the most optimistic pre-sale estimates rarely anticipate. When word gets out that a top condition 1981 P quarter error is coming to market, the phones at major auction houses begin ringing before the catalog is even printed, and the bidding on auction day can escalate with a speed and ferocity that leaves observers breathless. For anyone watching this video who is now mentally racing through every coin collection, every old jar, every forgotten drawer, and piggy bank in their home, we want to give you the clearest possible guidance on what to look for. When searching for a potentially valuable 1981 P quarter dollar, begin as always with the mint mark. The P on the obverse just below Washington's portrait tells you this coin came from Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is where the magic happened. Next, spend time with a magnifying glass examining both faces of the coin for any signs of doubling, ghosting, or underlying imagery that seems inconsistent with a standard Washington quarter design. These traces of the double denomination error are subtle but unmistakable once you know what you're looking for, appearing most clearly in the field areas of the coin and around the edges of the main design elements. Pay close attention to the edge of the coin as well, because certain error varieties display a distinctive irregularity in the reading, the small ridges that run around the circumference of a standard quarter, that immediately signals something unusual happened during the striking process. And once again, condition is paramount. A circulated example of even the most dramatic error variety will never reach the valuations we have discussed today. The coins that command 8- and 9-figure prices are the coins that look as though they just left the mint moments ago, frozen in time, untouched by the world that has changed so dramatically around them. The philosophical dimension of a coin like the 1981 P quarter dollar is something that serious collectors think about deeply, and it is worth pausing for a moment to consider here. We live in an age of digital transactions, contactless payments, and virtual currencies, a world that increasingly treats physical money as an inconvenience rather than an object of beauty and history. And yet, in this same age, a 25-cent coin struck more than 4 decades ago at a government facility in Philadelphia can command a price tag that exceeds the gross domestic product of some small nations. There is something profoundly human about that paradox, something that speaks to our deep and enduring desire to hold history in our hands, to own something irreplaceable, to possess a tangible piece of the world that no amount of digital replication can ever duplicate or diminish. The 1981 P quarter dollar, in its finest known form, is all of these things at once. It is a historical artifact, a technical marvel, a collector's obsession, and a financial instrument of extraordinary power, all compressed into a small disc of copper and nickel that was once worth exactly 25 cents and is now worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes combined. This is the coin that brings our journey today to its most dramatic and unforgettable conclusion. From the remarkable 1980 P quarter dollar with its staggering $140 million valuation to this, the 1981 P quarter dollar, and its even more breathtaking $158 million peak value. Today we have walked through 2 of the most extraordinary chapters in the story of American coinage. 2 coins that prove beyond any doubt that history, rarity, and condition can combine to create value that defies all ordinary logic and expectation. The next time you receive change at a store, the next time you empty your pockets at the end of a long day, the next time you stumble across an old coin collection in an attic or a basement or a garage sale, remember what you heard today. Remember that the most valuable coins in the world do not always look like treasure. Sometimes they look exactly like the change you almost spent this morning, and the only difference between spending a fortune and finding one is knowing what to look for. Thank you for watching Legacy Coins. And if this video changed the way you see the coins in your life, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because somewhere out there, right now, one of these coins is waiting to be found.